Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. Welcome to episode 145 of the podcast. My name is Rick DeWeese. I'll be your host this week. Okay, so let's see if we can put together a show with all this stuff that I got. All right, first off, we've got an email from Randy. There may be an opponent in the ring against ye old salsa bowl. Wonder how that's going to work out. Talk a little bit about Thursday's shave of the day. I found something on Facebook. Let's just call it same page, but different perspective. I'll also link to a video done by Joe over at Shave Straight and Safe. He's using a modern single-edge blade and an 1890 razor. Would you like to know how? I'll link to his video and tell you all about it. Okay, then I found another article on Facebook, and so this time it's, well, same page and same perspective. I'll tell you all about that, too. Okay, weekend activities. What did I do this weekend, and how did it work out? Sometimes it goes good, sometimes it goes bad, sometimes you have to do it again. It's just one of those things. Mantic did a review of some new Harry's blades that was interesting, and I had an interesting conversation with my son following, it was kind of interesting. It followed a listening to another podcast that kind of spurred my interest and kind of hit a few notes that I enjoy. And so the conversation that I had with my son afterwards, and I didn't set this up. He came to me naturally and just asked a question, and it kind of led straight into this thought process, and we kind of went from there. So it was a really good conversation. A gold dollar shave of the day, followed by a Sheffield shave of the day, and some, just thoughts and things about, shaving and life in general when you're doing it with a straight razor. And then finally, this week, yesterday, I had an opportunity to do something that, it ranks right up there with some of the really good things in anyone's life. I got to help make an Eagle Scout. I'll tell you all about it. Anyhow, that's the show this week. It's kind of all over the place, like usual. Anyhow, let's get on with this thing and see how it goes. So I got an email from Randy. Okay, so here we go. Has the vaunted salsa bowl met its match? I know I must sound like a lathering heretic, but maybe, just maybe, I have a contender. I live in California, where about 2/3 of the year I use the lather bowl and 1/3 of the year I use a scuttle. Yes, I admit that for travel, the plastic salsa bowl is hard to beat, and the price is right. But I wanted something with a little more eye appeal and classy looks. Wow, my salsa bowl is not classy. Well, get the lime green one, for crying out loud. Okay, I digress. Okay, my quest started with some lathering bowls from Etsy. Very nice, but the performance was lacking. Also, the famous Bay Rum Maker's lathering bowl, I purchased the larger model, and still disappointment at the performance. Some trips to discount and outlet stores had me trying larger latte cups and bowl sets. What these more attractive ceramic alternatives were lacking in was the surfaces were always slickly glazed, reducing the friction with the shave brush. This point I will give to the salsa bowl and the low grit sandpaper treatment, which improves this critical aspect. And he's absolutely correct. And if you haven't heard of that, what I do with my salsa bowls, and this is all of them, and in fact, I saw a red one time. Now that was classy. Anyhow, take the salsa bowl, and on the inside where it's normally smooth, take 60 or 80 grit sandpaper and rough up the whole surface. I mean, just go over everything. And the more scratches in it, the better. And what'll happen is your lather will be foamy for a couple of days, but then as you knock down the edges a little bit, you will have a very nice surface with which to build a lather on the inside of your nice, classy salsa bowl. Okay. So anyhow, we will continue with the email. My answer came from the East. specifically Japan. A kitchen tool used in Japanese cooking that is a ceramic mortar and pestle for crushing seeds and spices, called a suribachi bowl. The suribachi bowl is a normal glazed bowl on the outside and top rim, but inside it is unglazed and contains a vertical rows, perfect for whipping up some great lather. Normally available in sizes between 4 and 8 inches in diameter. And he's included a picture, and it looks marvelous. So I'll go ahead and post that as well. The cost of these are fairly reasonable, with a great deal for Amazon Prime members for a 5.5-inch diameter bowl at $10.99 with free shipping. And he's got the link for Amazon, and I'm going to put one on the wish list because I'm going to get one of these animals and try it out. So 5.5, he says, is a perfect size for almost all brushes. I cannot help myself for my 30mm boar brush, 26mm badgers, and my Kong synthetics. I many times will use my newly acquired 7-inch suribachi bowl. Haha. My verdict, sorry, Senor Salsa, Samurai Suribachi has soundly defeated you. But we'll always travel together because that is where you truly shine. Hope this maybe will be a consideration for some of us that are looking for something else that is pleasing to look at and very efficient at its job. So he's got a picture of a glorious brush and bowl filled with absolutely amazing lather. Yeah, it's a pretty good picture there. Anyhow, Rick, keep up the good work and take some time for yourself. I can start hearing more of your passion for shaving and life. Randy. Well, Randy, thank you very much. First off, great find. Holy cow. You know, back when one of the things that I was always thought about is how could I get grooves inside a salsa bowl? And at one time I was even thinking about taking a soldering iron and burning them in. But I ended up going with the sandpaper just because it was so darn easy. And but this, I mean, they're molded in, and there's a lot of them. It's not like just a few here and there. They're everywhere. And, yeah, good stuff. Great pictures. And thank you very much for providing the link. I'm going to get one of these guys. Now the question is, what size? 5.5, 6, 7. Ooh. And for that kind of price? Yeah. Anyhow, Randy, great to hear from you. Great email and great find. Thanks. Well, it's another rainy day, and it's also hot and muggy. Got the air conditioning on because it's just downright, well, damp out there. Between the rain and the humidity, it's like you could walk from your from the house to the car, feel like you just stepped out of the shower again. So, you know, if you're shaving in the outdoors, it would probably be really, really good. You wouldn't have to do any prep at all. Oh, well. Anyhow, shave of the day today. So, some Savannah Sunrise, my 1305 brush, and I went back just because I hadn't done it in a while to a Gillette adjustable, a Gillette Slim adjustable. No, I take that back. I believe it was the Fat Boy that I used this morning. It was right next to the adjustable. I get confused sometimes. They all start looking the same. Jeez. Anyhow, put a brand new silver blue blade in it and proceeded to shave. Put it on a 6 just to see if it really was an appreciation for a higher setting. Like I was having with the injector adjustable. And yes, what I found is that the 5, with the 5, I couldn't feel the blade, which was nice, but when I took it up to a 6, I could in fact feel the blade, and I kind of appreciated that. Let me know what's going on. And so, yeah. Cranked it up to a 6 and proceeded to do a 3-pass shave. Didn't have a whole lot of time, so I couldn't dilly-dally around and make everything perfect. But for the most part, yeah, got a pretty good shave out of it. So fairly happy with that. Finished up with some fine orange noir, some black-orange aftershave. and headed out this morning early because I got some stuff that I got to prepare for a meeting, and geez, life. I'll tell you what, it's this 9 to 5 thing. If I cannot do this 9 to 5 thing all the time, every now and then it'd be okay, but all the time, geez, it gets a little old after a while, and I don't know. The good news is that I'm to the point now, just mentally, that I don't sweat the small stuff. It's somebody gets upset, somebody says I'm not doing something. It's like, yeah, okay, all right, I'll work on it. Yeah, no reason to freak out or anything. Just I'll work on it. I try to do my best. The old Cub Scout motto every day, and there you go. But anyhow, back to the shave. It was pretty good. I was curious. Again, because I haven't used an adjustable or a Fat Boy double-edged type razor in a while, and the feedback that I got from the razor was more sensation than it was hearing. It wasn't really audible, but I could definitely feel it. It was curious. It was kind of a mix, but it was more on the feel side than audible, which struck me as, well, that's a little hadn't really thought about that before. But how much do we feel in the feedback of our razors and everything? How much do we feel, and then just kind of associate the sound with that instead of hearing it and then associating the feel with it? It's an interesting thing. Which came first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing? So, anyhow, that was the shave of the day, and walking out with some coffee, not homemade, home roasted, unfortunately, but coffee nonetheless, and heading out for another interesting day. So here's an interesting one. I was cruising along Facebook, and I noticed an article, 9 Reasons Your Shave Isn't As Good As It Could Be. And I went, well, okay, I'll save that one for later and check it out. Now, I am always on the lookout for shave-related things that pop up on Facebook just to share with the audience here, well, because sometimes they're interesting. So I got to reading this thing, and it is from bustle.com, and it is written by Mickey Hayes, and it's for women's shaving. But I read it anyhow because I thought, well, okay, maybe. And you never know. But the things that I found were very interesting and, in fact, very consistent. Okay, so some of the things, 9 reasons your shave isn't as good as it could be. Number 1, you don't use a fresh blade. Okay, so everybody knows that blades, well, as you shave, they get nicks, they get dull, you're just not going to get as close a shave with one that you use over time. And this raises an interesting point, especially with the cost of cartridge razors being what they are. How many of us have, in fact, tried to go that extra mile, if you will, with ye old cartridge blade? And, in fact, sometimes doing the same thing with an inexpensive carbon steel blade just because, well, it ought to last as long as that stainless blade. I mean, come on, Granted, it's only a quarter or whatever, but come on. And lo and behold, we sit there and wonder, well, why is my shave quality reduced? Could be because you're not using a clean new blade. Okay, the next one, number 2, is exfoliating. Now, for those of us that wet shave, that use a brush, we may not need to have this, but okay, for women, yeah, maybe. The next one I found really interesting. You don't stay in the shower long enough. If you shave as soon as you hop in the bath or shower, again, this was written for women, but I can understand the point. It would be, it's not going to be as close as it could be because you haven't done the proper prep the stubble, the moisture in the stubble. I remember way back when I read somewhere that it reduces moisture in your hair follicles, actually reduces the resistance to cutting by like 60%. So you can get a closer shave if you keep things nice and moist for a period of time and let things absorb the water. You don't use a shaving cream is number 4. Okay. Yeah, that is what happens. If you try dry shaving or shaving with traditional soap, sometimes you don't get as close a shave. Also, they say that some soaps can actually dull your blades. And yeah, it can, but I must admit, I shaved for years and years with just regular soap and just a throwaway, two-bladed razor. It does work. It's not going to give you the absolute best shave in the world, but it does work. So, of course, it depends, if you've got more stubble than you know what to do with, and, a good blade only lasts 2 shaves, well, okay, maybe it's a little bit different. But, if you don't use a shaving gel or shaving cream of some time, you're going to run into problems, more than likely. Okay? Next one, don't shave in the right direction. Yes, how many times have we talked about grain and the fact that you need to understand the grain growth? I mean, that's something that Mantic has been saying for 10 years now, which happens to be how long he's been out there talking about wet shaving and doing YouTube videos and stuff, so I thought that was rather cool. But, the next one, you shave too quickly. In other words, you're trying to do it all at once. Instead of taking passes, you're trying to do it all at the same time, and it just doesn't work. The next one, you use too much pressure. Yeah, we've been talking about that for a long, long time. Let the razor do the work. Let the blade actually cut. Don't force it. Don't push it through. Just let it cut. And then the last one is use an aftershave and a moisturizer. Now, for me, okay, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I don't know. I still get good shaves. Maybe that's from a woman's perspective. I don't know. But the thing that I found most interesting about the article, and thank you, Mickey, for putting it out there, is the fact that it is, so similar, because when it comes down to it, it's essentially the same activity. And so it's nice to see that, that everybody's on the same page, as it were. So anyhow, I'll link to the article, and if you happen to have a woman in your life, maybe you can share it. So Joe over at Shave Straight and Safe has a new video out. How to use modern single-edge blades in an 1890 Kampf Brothers safety razors. So he went and got himself a Kampf Brothers safety razor. And if you ever look at one of these things, it's as he puts it, or otherwise known as a lather catcher, because it's got a big lather catcher area and with a wedge blade that typically fits on top of it. Now, I've never had one of these. I'm curious to get one just because, I'd want to hone that wedge blade and just see what it could do. But there you go. Anyhow, what he decided he wanted to do is he wanted to see if he could use a modern single-edged blade in this old safety razor that used wedge blades. And he has done it, and he put a video up as to how to do it so that if you want to do something similar, you can. And it involves some modifications to a standard single-edged blade, and adding, not just one, but 2 spines after shortening it up a little bit and throwing on some other stuff to make it fit and make it work. But lo and behold, after watching the video, I was sitting there first off rather amazed because I haven't really looked at the Kampf razor, and it does give a pretty good close-up of the razor itself and the mechanism where it holds the wedge blade, and I thought that was rather unique. And just the ingenuity of it, because, I like people who make things, and I like people who actually do things and modify stuff and, make it work. What's the saying? Necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah, that's me. I resemble that remark. Anyhow, it's a great video, and I'll go ahead and link to it. And you know, Joe's been out there. He's been doing all kinds of stuff on Shave Straight and Safe. He also does Wet Shaving News podcast. He helps with that, and so he's all over the place. So you know, give his blog site a look-see, and go check out the Wet Shaving podcast as well. So just to kind of follow up on a theme, I was cruising along on Facebook and found this other one, which was from The Art of Manliness, 7 Mistakes New Wet Shavers Make. Number 1, poor prep. Remember that last article that said you don't spend long enough in the shower? Yeah, it goes directly to poor prep. If you're not keeping things moist and letting that actually occur, yeah, poor prep is gonna make it happen, and it's gonna be not as good as it could be. Next one, lousy lather, or not using shaving cream. Yeah, sound familiar? How about this one? Mistake number 3, ignoring the grain. Yeah, how about that? Okay, here you go. Mistake number 4, too much pressure. Mistake number 5, incorrect blade angle. Okay, now that one's new. That one was not in the other article, and so that's pretty good stuff. So shaving with the blade at too steep of an angle is another frequent cause of irritation and nicks. And yeah. And so, the article says if you're making the transition from a cartridge razor to a double edge, there's a tendency to hold the razor the same way. However, that's usually too steep an angle. The handles, the actual angle that you hold the head is in fact different between the two razor systems, and it's a little bit different between a double edge and a single edged in most cases. So yeah, it's different. And if you get into some of the really old ones, then you have to kind of figure it out as you go. So there you go. Anyhow, the next one, shaving over unlubricated skin. I see this mistake a lot when talking to teenagers that haven't learned how to shave, and their dads haven't taught them, or they haven't asked, or whatever, and they're shaving over unlubricated skin. So they go ahead and lather up the first time they shave. Do a pass, get all the lubrication off, and then they go to shave again. And, well, there you go. If you ever see someone that has little patches where it looks like pieces of skin have been essentially ripped off, that's typically what has happened. Followed by mistake number 7, which is right there with it, is repeated strokes. Again, repeated strokes over unlubricated skin. Now, this is, I've seen this a lot with cartridge razors and teenagers. Quite honestly, if I wanted to be nice to a teenager, what I would probably give them is a double-edged or a single-edged safety razor with an open comb that happened to be rather mild, because the open comb actually doesn't take all the lubrication off. It leaves some behind, so you can do multiple strokes. And so, that might be a thing to do. If somebody's out there making a starter razor kit for young men, build something like the equivalent of a Gillette New, or something like that, or even a Gillette Old, with an open comb, 3-piece razor, open comb, but make it mild. Make it about a 3 on the fat boy scale, and that'd be a good starter set. Because with an open comb, you can do multiple passes, without relubricating, and typically you can get away with it. But anyhow, again, it's one of these things where you go around and you talk. Yeah, it's not, I hate to say it this way, it's not rocket science, but there are some things that are exceedingly consistent and have been that way forever. And even today, I catch myself, jumping in the shower and jumping out a little bit too quickly and having the poor prep situation. I haven't had the lousy lather situation in a while, just because, I practice and I enjoy having a good lather, and I am just absolutely convinced that everybody should be capable of understanding their soaps and brushes and water hardness and things like that, so that they can get good lather, because, it is important, and I have suffered from that in the past. Ignoring grain. Okay, this is something that even now, after all this time, I still catch myself doing every now and then. And, I have to come back and go, well, okay, yeah, I did it to myself. This is why. Yeah. Too much pressure. Okay, now for me, I find myself having this conversation in my head every now and then because I switch sometimes, a good bit between razors, and sometimes I will pick up something like a Bakelite Mercure slant, and then the next day I'll pick up a Fat Boy, and then I'll go back to something like a Gem Featherweight, and then I'll go to, like a Gillette New or something. So I'm constantly switching back and forth, and I enjoy doing that. So it's not because I'm trying to, tear myself up. It's just, I enjoy that. But the thing is that it does lead itself to the pressure question from time to time. Incorrect blade angle. Yeah, I suffer from that every now and then. I find that I am most prone to it with from time to time straight razors. That's where I notice it the most. Shaving over unlubricated skin. Nope, I do not do that. I have not done that since back in my Navy days. I mean, even when I was shaving in the shower with hand soap, I would kind of throw a little bit more soap on just to make sure things the glide was there, and absolutely no cushion, all glide, but hey, there you go. Repeated strokes, again, you gotta know what you're dealing with, and sometimes you can get away with it. And if you feel that your razor is skipping or wanting to stick, stop. Because otherwise it may get ugly quick. Anyhow, I found that very interesting. I'll go ahead and link to this article as well. But 7 mistakes new wet shavers make from the art of manliness. And isn't it amazing that we're starting to see more and more articles like this in all kinds of publications? Yeah, good stuff. All right, so what have I been doing over the weekend? Okay, so first off, we'll tell you a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about the shave of the day. Well, actually, the shave of yesterday and today. Okay, so over the weekend, I went down on Friday and bought myself a new whetstone, and happened to be an 800. So now I have an 800, a 1200, and a 6000 that I can use. And main reason I wanted the 800 is because I had a razor that I needed to set the bevel on, and trying to do that on a 1200, yeah, don't think so. Do it on 800 and it doesn't work too badly, but doing it on a 1200 would probably have taken me a month. Anyhow, so got the 800 and proceeded to take that old razor and set the bevel on it, polished it with the 1200, finished it up on the 6000, and just kind of honed it lightly there at the end, and got an absolutely wonderful finish. A wonderful edge on it. Shaves beautifully. There's something about that steel. It's just, oh gosh, it's gorgeous. Anyhow, and granted, I understand that where I really should be going with this is seeing if I can't get a 10,000, 12,000, or 16,000 finishing stone of some type, and just really making it just wonderful. I get that. I'm not there yet. Anyhow, so the first razor that I did was an old Sheffield razor, and wonderful, wonderful razor. Shaved with it on Saturday, lathered up, and just, it was a beautiful shave. Just smooth and dang near effortless. It really was nice. Very, very impressive. Now, when I did that on, I think it was on Friday night, I believe it was. When I did that, I also did one of my gold dollar razors. And I thought that I had a pretty decent edge on it. And so when I went to shave with it on Sunday, Actually, was it Sunday? Yes, it was Sunday. And it pulled, it tugged, it left stuff behind. It was not a pleasant experience. Razor burn and irritation and just, Okay, well, that's all right. That's how you learn. Back to the drawing board we go, or in this case, back to the whetstone we go. And yesterday, I proceeded to reset the bevel, polish, and then hone, and got a pretty good edge on it. Shaved with it this morning, and yes, a very, very nice shave. Just shy of the fabulous shave that I got with the Sheffield. So I'm quite happy with it. And again, yes, I understand that I need to get a kind of a finishing stone, if you will, besides the 6,000. I understand that, but for what I have, it worked out very, very nicely, and I'm rather happy with it. I'm rather pleased with the fact that now I am to the point where, yes, in fact, I can actually put a shaving edge back on my own razors, which means that the straight razors that I have that don't cost a whole lot to begin with, I can essentially use for, well, the rest of eternity, at least as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, good stuff. I like that. If you want to go with cheap, a good straight razor and a set of hones and learning how to use them, that is the ultimate in inexpensive shaves. I mean, that just, you don't have to replace anything. You just throw it back on the hone, touch it up, and call her a day. I like that principle. I like the concept. And so far, I've been able to do that, and that makes me very happy. So another step in the evolution of this wet shaver, anyhow. Is it perfect? Is it as good as some of the Honemeisters out there can get? No, I will grant you that. But it is sufficient for me to continue moving forward and learning. And, well, that's the whole point, isn't it? So checking things out over at Sharpologist, well, Mantic over there has been testing out Harry's new blades. I'll go ahead and read you this article. I'll link to it as well. One thing I've learned while wet shaving is what I like in a razor. I've done a few reviews of cartridge razors this year, and one feature that I noticed that I really liked was the trimming blade on the back of the razor. Since I've been wet shaving for about 5 years, I haven't needed this feature because no matter what DE razor I'm using, I can always get under my nose and make sure my sideburns are squared away and get the corners of my mouth. So he talks about prior experience with the old Harry's blades and does just a quick comparison with some of the Gillette and top-of-the-line cartridge from Dollar Shave Club, and the fact that the old Harry's blades did not have a trimming razor or a trimming blade. So while he was looking at that, he received an email from Harry saying that they were introducing their next generation of blades and that it included a trimmer blade on the back. Needless to say, as he puts it, I burned up the keyboard ordering a set of 4. Cost $11 with shipping, so each cartridge is a little more than $2. So the other thing is that along with the trimmer blade on the top, they also increased the flexibility of the head with a new rubber flex hinge. And he said he didn't think he had a problem with the old one, but okay. All righty. Now, it says side by side, 2 carts look similar, but there is a trim blade on top, which he wanted to see just for the sake of argument. How it worked. So he, let whiskers grow for a couple of days and tried it out. He said didn't have any problem. In fact, he could almost shave, or he thought he could shave, do a complete shave with just that one blade. The problem is that because of the position and everything else, it started clogging up, relatively quickly, which does not impact it negatively as a trim blade, but you're not going to want to shave with just that one. So, anyhow, he had a good experience with it. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute, Rick. Last week you said that you really didn't see the reasoning behind multiple bladed cartridges. Well, I got to tell you, I still don't. But some people like the silly things. I don't see why, but hey, there you go. Anyhow, Mantic did a review. I thought his review was interesting, and it is interesting that they are going, that the companies as a whole are trying to create a single blade trimming system, which leads me to believe anyhow that straight razors, single edge razors, and DE razors are, well, in my mind, superior because they already have essentially the trim blade built in, and you do have the capacity to shave with it completely. So, okay, if you like cartridge razors, and some people do, this might be an option. Harry's is out there, and they have a trim blade on it. And they don't seem to be terribly expensive, although for $11, man, I can buy a lot of blades. Anyhow, I'll link to the article and let you form your own opinion, because as I've always said on my show, it is my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean I'm wrong. It's just my opinion. You can have yours, and I'm good with that. So I had an interesting conversation with my older son, and it was interesting for the conversation as well as, the timing. I had just gotten done listening to another podcast which had an intriguing title, and it was something to the effect of how to not raise your children as wussies. And I'll go ahead and link to that. The guy's name is Jack Spirko over at the Survival Podcast, and he's been doing it a long time. He started out in a car back. I think he's been doing it 8 years now. Anyhow, he was doing a whole show on in his head what he thought of would help raise children to not be wussies. And I found that while I was listening to his statements, I was agreeing with just about every single one of them, which in and of itself is a tad scary. But there you go. It was the premise was allow them to do things that may be, just a tad dangerous, go out and skin a knee and learn how to deal with it, and learn that, if you get hurt, typically, unless it's really severe, you get better, and that's how you learn. And learning how to fail is just as important as learning how to learn. And one of the main things was, don't stop learning, because, like I've said, if you stop learning, you kind of fall over and die, because what's the point? Anyhow, right after that, I was having a conversation with my, with my older son, and he was making mention of the fact that he appreciates the fact that I kind of raised him to not stop learning, and he was asking me how I knew about something, and I said, back in the day, the only thing that we had was, books and libraries and magazines, and he was having a hard time, comprehending that, because for him to learn it means YouTube. Okay, fair enough. But he made the comment that, he enjoys learning at this point, and I said, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I have so many varied hobbies. And he said, yeah, I appreciate that, even though there are some that I don't understand just quite why. And so we got to talking about, radios. And, because I asked him, I said, which one in particular do you not understand why? He said, radios. We have so many different versions of, communication methods and mechanisms. Why radio? I understand getting the basic license, being a technician and doing all that, but why go further? What is it what is it about radio? And I said, at this point, I said, radio, I'm okay with it. I do a pretty good job with it, but at the same time, the majority of my radio work, if you will, is with the Scouts. The majority of contacts that I make at this point are when I'm on scouting events. And I looked at him and I said, I know a lot of this stuff, and what I'm trying to do, and I think for me the most important thing and the thing that kind of gets me is, okay, yes, I raised you to be a questioning and, type of human being who wants to learn, but now I'm trying to do that with others. And he thought about that for a minute, and he said, I never even considered that. And I told him, I said, well, it makes sense. You don't have kids yet. I wouldn't have expected you to understand that, or even see that perspective. And he said, wow, that makes sense. I'm like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And like I told my wife later, it was like the gears were falling into place, and all the things that he had questioned over the years is, why the heck does Dad do that? All of a sudden, some of those gears and loose cogs just kind of fell into place, and the wheels started churning. And I mean, it was really fun to see, but it kind of boils down to, do you raise your kids to question, to learn, to try to figure out and think of things for themselves, to try to have their own opinions? I have often told him, and we have philosophical conversations from time to time, and I enjoy those. And I don't care what point of view he brings to the table. I will attempt to argue, if you will, the other side, and we'll just have a conversation. He talks a lot because he's in college of things like gay rights and stuff like that. And I'm cool with that. Doesn't bother me a bit, as long as they don't impact me or force me to alter my behaviors. I'm good with whatever anybody does. It's just the way it is. And we enjoy that back and forth. We enjoy the dialogue. And he says, and this is the thing that's a little bit scary, he says that right now on college communities and college campuses, having those kind of dialogues and discussions is, well, not easy, if maybe even impossible, because everybody is so, it's this way or this way, and there's no middle ground. Which, unfortunately, is kind of a shame, because isn't that the place where you're supposed to go? And, part of learning is trying to understand the other side. Part of learning is trying to get someone else's opinion and saying, yeah, okay, I understand. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. I understand how you could feel that way. I understand how you could have that as a point of view. Personally, I don't. But that's why I have my opinion, and, well, you have yours. So, anyhow, where I'm going with this, and it kind of rambles around a little bit, and it could branch off into 100 different things. But at the end of the day, and I'll go ahead and link to the podcast from TSP, just because I found it very interesting and enlightening, and you may too. Or the Survival Podcast. The whole point is, try to raise your kids to learn and question and be free thinkers, to look at a problem and come up with solutions instead of just sitting there and saying, it's a problem, I can't function like this. We did not get to the moon, quite honestly, as a society, as a race, being the human race, by sitting on our hands and going, it's broken, we can't figure it out. I guess we just have to sit here. No, we didn't do that. The Romans did not build the aqueducts by just sitting there and saying, well, we don't have any water here, I guess we won't have a city. That's not the way it worked. And at some point, somebody taught those kids how to think so that they could, in fact, conquer the world. Alrighty, let's talk about the shave of the day. Okay, so the shave of the day today was once again with my gold dollar straight razor. Now, so I sharpened honed, I guess is the appropriate term, even though I was sharpening knives and honing razors. Okay. It seems to me like, okay, you'd sharpen a razor and, I don't know. This is just a weird, language is strange sometimes to my ears. But anyhow, so I honed my razor the other day, and the first go-around didn't work very well. The second go-around, okay, worked much better, and I had a very nice shave with it yesterday. And I wanted to try it because after my shave yesterday, I went ahead and stropped it to help dry it off and to make sure that the edge was nice and dry and didn't get any corrosion on it or anything. And I wanted to just try it again to make sure that my honing technique was not such that, my stropping technique was not such that, okay, fine, I can hone a razor, but when I strop said razor, I destroy the edge. That would be bad. So anyhow, I stropped it, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 times yesterday, and then this morning I stropped it just a few more times just out of habit and proceeded to shave. Lathered up with some spike and my 1305, and mainly because I saw a guy on Facebook yesterday where one of his Samog brushes, the knot came out, and I was relating to him the fact that yes, indeed that has happened to me, and I've glued it back in. It took me 3 tries, but this third time apparently is the charm because my daily driver is back to, well, just about being a daily driver and doing very nicely. And so just kind of because of that, I went ahead and used my 1305 brush, lathered up with a little bit of spike just because I enjoy it, and had a very nice, wonderful 3-pass shave with a little touch-up with my gold dollar razor. And it was pretty nice. Just to give you an idea, threw on some aftershave, some British Sterling aftershave, which has a high alcohol content and got virtually no stinging. Yeah, it's kind of like, you're doing a good job with a straight razor when you throw on aftershave with alcohol in it and it feels like you're splashing water on your face. Yeah, like that. It's good stuff. Anyhow, so I'm very pleased and very happy. And again, I'm sitting here contemplating. Okay, so here pretty soon I'm going to have to do some other razors. I've got one that's got a bit of a nick in it, and going to have to see if I can't, get that thing worked out. And then I've got a couple other straight razors that could use a little attention, and that's all good. And, oh yeah, by the way, what's the next stone that I should get to, just take this to the next level and just really make the edge just absolutely pop? And, okay. Yeah, so I'm running down that little rabbit trail right now and don't know where it's going to lead, but hey, there you go. All of a sudden, the idea of having some nice straight razors, nicer than what I have now, maybe some restored ones or something. Just in the den, it's kind of like, yeah, I could probably do that, Of course, then I'm also listening to podcasts where, they're talking about the essential demise of men and the diminution of the family and everything else. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe somebody else, because I'm standing here shaving with a straight razor and I'm not necessarily politically correct. And so I don't think I fall into the same category as what these people are talking about. At least that was the thought process at the time, yeah, it does put a completely different perspective, on life in general. Again, it's like walking out of the house and kind of looking at the world and saying, all right, I shaved with a straight razor. What you got today? And so, yeah, it's very refreshing. It's nice. It's like, yeah, I got this. This is no big deal. And I kind of enjoy that attitudinal adjustment, if you will. The attitudinal setting is essentially cranked up to max when you shave with a straight razor. Yeah, I like that. It is the start of another day. Beautiful sunshiny day, 79 degrees out here, and just, well, kind of nice looking. Green, a little bit of dew on the grass, sunshine. Yeah, it's all good today. Anyhow, speaking of all good, let's talk about the shave of the day. So I got a message from Joe over at Shave Straight and Safe and the Wet Shaving News Podcast, and he said, "Glad to hear you're back." He said, "I recently," he said he's working with a single-edged razor and he's starting to get into it. And I said, he said, "I know you're a fan." I said, "Yeah, that's kind of funny because I'm getting into straight razors." It's interesting, the ebb and flow of the wet shaving, existence, I guess. You kind of go to one thing for a while and then move over to something else, and then it's a lot of fun. Anyhow, the shave of the day today was with one of my straight razors, an old Sheffield blade that I put a new edge on this weekend, and good shave. Just the only thing that I could have done better is and this is tough for me with a straight razor. I can do it, but it usually takes a kind of a fourth touch-up pass under the neck, and it is a tough angle for me to get because I have to go from my ear to my Adam's apple, and that is, if I had a straight razor that the blade width was, I don't know, maybe a third of what a standard straight razor is, I might be able to do it, but they're not, and so it's exceedingly difficult. I can sort of kind of do it if I come up in like a sweeping angle type of thing, but it's something that I've learned over time, and it's difficult for me to get. But everything else is just, smooth and nice and no irritation whatsoever, and wonderful, wonderful shave. And old steel. Boy, I'll tell you what. It does, in my opinion, make a difference. There is also a difference because of the shape of that blade. It's less of a hollow grind. If I look at, for example, a commonly known blade is like a gold dollar blade from China. And, some people say those aren't any good. They shave fine, especially if you put another edge, a new edge on them. It's, they do fine. But they're much more of a hollow grind, and even though they're wider, they're a little bit, it's like I don't know what the measurements on it are, but it's a wider blade than my other one. It doesn't quite have the weight, and so on my Sheffield blade, it has a good bit of weight to it. And it works very, very nicely in conjunction with the edge to, just give a fine, fine shave. Really, really nice. And I am so absolutely ecstatic that I am able to put a fine cutting edge on it. And again, the only thing that I'm looking for now is to just kind of polish it up just a little bit to give it that extra pop, if you will. And but it is a fine functional blade, and I could easily see myself with a straight razor or two being able to shave for the rest of my life with the thing. It's which really, really makes me happy. I mean, if you want to talk about money savings, there it is. You think about what somebody spends on cartridge razors over the course of a year. It's a good chunk of change. You get yourself a decent straight razor, and if you happen to, to have a good set of stones or to get a good set of sharpening stones, then all of a sudden you have the expenditure of a year or two of cartridge razors, and you are situated for life with a straight razor. How cool is that? Just amazing. Anyhow, so I use some Soul Man shaving soap and my 1438 brush, which is starting to soften up just a little bit, and nice brush. But all in all, a great shave this morning. Really enjoyed it, and again, it was really interesting because yesterday, I walked out of the house with a straight, after shaving with a straight razor, and kind of like, okay, world, what you got? And the world threw some stuff at me. It really did. And you know what? It was very, very easy to just kind of, bounce back from it. It's like, okay, no big deal. I'll move this way. And something else will get thrown at me. It's like, all right, well, I'll dodge by going like this, and then I'll do like that. And it was really one of those days where the attitude walking out of the house served me well. And that's the nice thing about wet shaving. That's the nice thing about, shaving with any single-edged or double-edged instruments. And for me, it was epitomized yesterday, being able to walk out of the house after having shaved with a straight razor. And hopefully today will be similar, because I shaved with a straight razor this morning. What you got? So yesterday, I was able to do something yesterday night that, I don't know, just, to me, it's one of those things, it falls under the category, if you will, of marriages and births and, the important things in life. What did I do yesterday? I helped make an Eagle Scout. Yeah, one of my boys who has been working hard and diligently for a while now made Eagle Scout last night as the culmination of his scouting career thus far. And yeah, talk about pride. Boy, I'll tell you what, when you see a young man walk in, and this was a special one because he walked in, and about the quickest that you can make Eagle Scout, if everything falls into place, and if the young man is dedicated and hardworking and everything else, you usually run into a situation where about the quickest you can do it is about 2.25 years. This boy walked in our scout troop about 2.5 years ago and said, I want to be a Boy Scout, I want to join your troop, and I want to make Eagle Scout. Can I do it? And yeah, you can join our troop. You can be a scout, and let's sit down and see if you can make Eagle Scout, and we'll lay out a plan. And that's pretty much what we did, and he followed that plan, and yeah, he made Eagle Scout. It was phenomenal. I've only known of one other person that has done that, who has come in as an older boy and worked hard and diligently toward a goal and made it. Yeah, it really, just good stuff. It's always neat when you run into a young man who is not necessarily acting like the young men around him. Much more focused, much more goal-oriented, and willing to, just do whatever it takes to get the job done. So, yeah, good stuff. And very, very proud of him. Some good questions in the Eagle Board of Review. One of them was, and I thought this was particularly good. Just because most young people don't get asked this question. Tell me 3 things about yourself that you would list as, well, potential issues or faults, and then tell me 3 good things about yourself. Now, most people in those situations are really good at telling the good things, not necessarily good at telling the bad things. However, you can, depending on what you're doing, answer those strategically if you're aware the question is a potential. But most of these kids have never heard that question before, and so that was very, very intriguing. It was good stuff. I mean, it was for those of you that are not involved in scouting and haven't ever sat on an Eagle Board of Review or any other boards of reviews for rank of advancements within Scouts. To a certain extent, it's a little like a job interview. And that's one of the reasons why Scouts and Eagle Scouts typically have an easier time in job interviews, just because they have been through similar situations and it's not that foreign to them. For a lot of kids that are not in the scouting program or a program like scouting, the first job interview they get is the one where they're actually looking for a job, which can lead to, well, some issues. You have to have practice sessions and you have to kind of teach them the ins and outs. Whereas if you're in the scouting program, you've kind of grown up in that environment and lived with it over the course of time, at the same time while you're having, well, just a bit of fun. And so it's not something that you see as work or as strain or as something completely odd and different. Now, the other thing is that as an Eagle Scout, the young man has had to work on a project. Now, if you've ever worked on any kind of, say, a capital investment project for a company, there are phases in the project. The first phase is kind of in my business, we call it an opportunity study. Does it make sense to do this project? Or, a proposal. This is the project that I want to do, and somebody has to sit there and decide, yeah, that's a good project, and yeah, we're going to move forward with that, or at least move to the next phase. So that part of the project is the first part of an Eagle project, actually, is, okay, this is my idea for a project, and this is what I would like to do. Once that becomes approved, then the next phase is, okay, how much is this going to cost, and how are you going to plan this to occur? And so the scout who, under normal circumstances, has probably never had to do something like this, goes and determines, okay, how much will materials cost? How much will tools and things like that cost if we have to rent any tools, or things like mulch or stuff like that? All the stuff that goes into making a project, whatever that project is, how much is each one of those items going to cost, and also how much are you going to need? Some people can say, well, if I was to build a retaining block wall, each block costs this much. Okay, so how many blocks will you need? And all of a sudden, they're starting to utilize things that they've learned in school, math and estimations and things like that, and it becomes a little bit more involved. So at that point, the young man has a proposal that has, we can go forward with this, and then they come up with kind of a final that says this is how much it's going to cost, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how this plan is going to be laid out, and they move forward and raise the money, attain the money in some fashion or another, and then actually do the project. And then at the end of the whole project, they have to sit down with the beneficiary of the project and ask the question, did this project meet your needs, desires, or did it turn out like I said it was going to turn out? Which, again, is something that, most young people never have an opportunity to do. And then in the end, they get, and this is probably the most important part of the whole project, and it's one that, quite honestly, is and should be stressed the most for an Eagle Scout. What did you learn from the whole process? What went really, really well? What didn't go really, really well? And if you had to do it again, what would you have changed? And what blew up in the middle of the whole thing that you had to react to? And, well, how did you react to it? Now, if you think about it, how many young people in our lives today have the experience of doing something like that? And I dare say it's not many. The thing is that when you take an Eagle Scout, and at least in my company, and you put him in front of a panel of interviewers, well, he has that experience. And when they start talking about things like capital investment projects, and he has some familiarity with that process, even though he doesn't know it. But he does. And when they start asking him questions about projects and things, he can actually relate and identify and talk to a certain extent to those points. And that is an impressive trait, because most young people at that point can talk about a school project that they might have worked on, or a teamwork project that they did in a class or something like that, but they don't have the experience of putting a whole project together, providing the leadership for the project, and running it all the way through. And so, yes, it is absolutely a special breed, and that special breed is called an Eagle Scout. Wow, that was interesting. That was not something that I would recommend. Okay, so we have a motorcyclist passing in a left-hand turn with trees everywhere, not being able to see oncoming traffic, and he is wearing shorts, no shirt, a helmet, and flip-flops. I'm sorry, I do not have enough bandages and first aid equipment in my truck to deal with the case of potential road rash that just passed me by. I understand a scout is supposed to be prepared, but there's some things that, nope, I can't cover that. Holy cow, that is tempting fate. Anyhow, like I said, the thing that I did yesterday was one of those things that was very much a congratulatory event, in that the young man had done everything required to make Eagle Scout, and we got to acknowledge that yesterday, and I'll tell you what, that was fun. Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at brushandsoapandblade@gmail.com, or give me a call at 864-372-6234, or contact us on Twitter at Brush and Blade. You can also visit us at our blog, brushandsoapandblade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.